Good evening, friends, and good evening, my fellow panelists. It's my honor to be here this evening, and though this is the last session, and I also believe this is perhaps the most important session. Uh, and this topic is the ICT in financial inclusion. I mean, as we all know, it's very clear what a financial exclusion is, but financial inclusion is really evolved in the past decade or so, and actually it sort of achieved a more formal role with Mr. Rangarajan's committee, which really brought it to the forefront. And Mr. Rangarajan says, I quote him, "His financial inclusion is really ensuring access to financial services and timely and adequate credit where needed most by vulnerable groups at an affordable cost." There's much that has happened in the financial services sector. There's been a massive expansion in the past 2 decades. And compared to what it was 40 years ago, we just had about 8,500 bank branches in the country. 3 years ago, there are almost 86,000 of them. And the penetration also has been substantial. Almost 38% of the rural areas of the banking sector services are located in the rural areas. But still only 40% of the population have savings account, and the percentage in terms of the rural areas is much lower, it's 32%. Now, unless there's a conscious recognition that unless the poor, the excluded are brought into the ambit of the financial services, and unless they are provided access to meaningful credit, they would not be leveraging the huge hidden potential that remains in the rural areas. And I believe that 2 important things have happened in the past 2-3 decades. And in 90s, we have had this big upsurge in terms of organizing women's groups, the user groups, which has actually reduced the transaction cost in financial operations. I think that's a massive opening, and I myself associated with the international as staff member of the International Fund for Agriculture Development. In fact, we pioneered with NABARD in 90s with the Maharashtra Rural Credit Project, where the bank linkage between the self-help groups and the financial with the banks, and also in the Tamil Nadu Women Empowerment Project, where the NGOs and the banks, particularly the Indian Bank, came together to expand access to those who are traditionally excluded. I think that was one movement. Now, of course, in Andhra Pradesh alone, we have more than 1 crore and 10 lakh women organized into self-help groups, with 10 lakh self-help groups with bank accounts and managing the finances on a regular basis. It led to a huge upsurge in credit consumption to the tune of 10,000 crores a year, this year alone in our state itself. And this is further given a big boost in the past decade by virtue of the application of the IT, expansion of the IT-enabled services. So we really have 2 major events that have taken place and are taking place, and what we have is a huge future. I mean, if I really see, I do not believe that there's any other arena where there's a huge opportunity. I mean, as I said, only 40% of the population in general and only 32% in the rural areas have access to financial services. So there's a massive potential and massive commitment both on the government and the financial institutions to include all those who are traditionally excluded in the ambit of the financial services and the value-added services. And that gives a huge opportunity for the IT sector, whether it's through the enabled services, through internet, through mobile telephony. I think all these are interesting opportunities where there would be massive expansion, and we have very eminent colleagues here on this panel, and I would request each one of them to make a presentation on the topic for about 5 minutes, so that we would have enough time for questions if there are any, and also to sum up and then add further any. So I first call upon Mr. Narayana Swamy, who is the Deputy General Manager and Regional Head of Andhra Pradesh of Bank of Baroda, to make his presentation.